All right. Well, thanks a lot, Petra, again for the introduction. Like you said, I am a community manager for the Open Science Community Delft. And I'm also part of our Open Science program, which is an institutional financed by the board program that focuses on various aspects of open science. Within the program, I specifically focus on citizen science. So that's why I'm doing the presentation today on it. We call it citizen science, but what we really mean is citizen science and any kind of participatory research. We have a growing community at TU Delft, not everyone doing citizen science, but we're growing the community of people who are interested in it, who want to learn more, and who want to practice it. And we have a regional reach and support because we're trying to coordinate a little bit better with generally the Dutch context, but also our colleagues in Rotterdam. Before I move on to how we approach our citizen science support, I wanted to make sure that I know you've been talking a lot about it already, so you have a definition, but what we use as a definition is the 10 principles identified by the European Citizen Science Association that very loosely describe what a citizen science project is and the benefits to both the community and the community in your city or wherever it is you're performing the projects, or research community. So we include any type of participatory research that falls within those 10 criteria in our citizen science projects. So our approach is trifold, if you want. We focus on learning community and raising awareness about the methodology and skills necessary to apply the methodology, project-specific support that we provide to our researchers, and capacity building. And when I say we, I mean a small team of 3 people. Me being one of them, I'm working together with another colleague from publishing that deals with the publishing side of things, and another colleague who practically implements quite a few projects in the Science Museum at TU Delft. It's called the Science Center. And the 3 of us keep continuously in touch with our community, basing our support on the needs of the community and adjusting as we go. So this is an approach that changes based on the feedback we get from the researchers that we talk to. And I'm going to focus a little bit more on every side of this approach. So the learning community. It started a few years ago when we decided to work a little bit more on citizen science. It wasn't at that point included in our open science effort, so it took a little bit of time for my colleagues to get this across, that citizen science is an important part of open science and how it fits within it, and getting a few people together that do citizen science to start advocating for it. Now the community includes around 60 to 160 people, depends on the day, on the activity, and how you define the community. But we do community lunches every month, where we invite researchers to talk a little bit more about their research, the type of methodologies that they use, the challenges that they face, because I think especially the challenges are important to notice because there are so many and there's so many different ways of dealing with them. So that's a learning aspect of it. And then after the presentations, we usually have quite a vibrant Q&A where everyone gets to ask questions, talk solutions, provide solutions, or even suggest collaboration opportunities for the speakers. And we eat lunch that helps. We provide training on a need base, right? So if a researcher comes to us and says, I'm a little bit struggling with this, our project is this, could you train us to do it better? We do that. Or we recognize that there's a need for a specific type of training for a larger community, and we would organize that. Another way we approach this is our Open Science MOOC, which is live now, or starting to go live now this year, which has a citizen science module in it. The module is rather basic, so it's an introduction to citizen science, but it's a good starting point for anyone who's interested in exploring the methodology and seeing whether it fits their needs or not, especially, for example, PhD candidates who are just at the beginning of their research cycle and are looking for interesting ways to do the research that they set their eyes on. We also provide project or researcher inventorization, which is an ongoing battle. And I've talked to a lot of colleagues across the Dutch institutions that face the same challenge. Because we use the term citizen science doesn't mean that all the researchers who do any sort of citizen science use the same terminology. So it's very difficult to identify who does citizen science in each institution and to what extent their projects fit within the definition that we use, and whether they're interested in our support or interested in providing support for others. So we've dealt with it in various ways. We've done desk research. We've done some search based on the tools we have at the library. And based on the results of that, we've come up with quite a few names. But it's an ongoing process, and we continuously monitor who does what and whether we want to include those people in the community and whether they want to be one as well. And then we also provide them a space on the website. We have a website for citizen science with a few tools that people can use, the contact information for the team that they can reach out to for support, where we would like to also showcase those projects, wonderful projects that we have at TU Delft. You can check out the website later on. We have a few projects on there, but this is a new project that we're designing. So we only have a few of the researchers who wanted to show their work on the website. But it's an excellent way for us to also allow the researchers to be more recognized for the work that they do, regardless of the results, whether they are very publishable results or not, to recognize the efforts it takes for them to actually attempt a citizen science project. So we want to make sure that their names are well known throughout the university and recognized, regardless of whether their direct supervisor thinks it's important or not. The project-specific support, for which our target audience is researchers, and I have to say this once again, most of our support is directed at researchers simply because we don't have the capacity at the moment within the team to extend it to the citizen researchers as well, although that's definitely the goal and aim at some point in the future, because we want to make sure that the participation for both citizens and professional researchers is on equal footing. So for now, with the project-specific support that we provide is for researchers, and it ranges from different legal and ethical support, which is always a cumbersome process. Researchers complain that it takes a really long time, and it does. But it's an important part of the process, because very often when I support them with legal and ethical forms and the committee that they need to go through, Human Ethics Committee, we recognize that there are a lot of things that the committee forces the researchers to think about that they wouldn't otherwise think about. And it's a learning process as well. So it's a very important step. Consent forms and how to approach consent forms, not as a legal document, but rather for what its intended purpose is, not just covering your GDPR rules, but rather making sure that whichever group of citizens you're working with understands what the project is about, how their data is going to be used, if it's going to be used, where it's going to be stored, but also understands the importance of those questions, right? Especially if you're working with, say, children that are of ages 13 to 18, perhaps the consent forms are not necessary for the children, it's necessary legally for their parents. There needs to be a way for the children who already understands the issues of data management or can understand it to be better informed about the decisions about their data. So we're trying to support researchers in making that happen and creating specific, not just forms, but also methodologies around it to make sure that they can communicate it to the target group. Project setup and proposal review. We often review proposals for projects that include citizen science as a methodology, or researchers would come to us saying, well, I have an idea for a project, but my funding requires it to be a citizen science project. How do we make that happen? And then it's a bit of a struggle to make the researchers understand that if you're just including citizen science as a tick the box exercise for the funders, it's not going to work. And then seeing the value that the citizen science approach could actually mean for their project. And sometimes we even become parts of the project teams when the researchers say, well, we see the value, we absolutely love it, we have no idea how to do it and no time to do it. Can you help? And then we become part of the team. And then through being part of the project, we also kind of teach the researchers on how this could be done. So next time they don't have to rely on external support. And the last but not least is capacity building, which is very important because, like I said, skills that are necessary for citizen science are not actually taught as a standard academic skills. We have a whole document, I think it's about 12 pages long, in which we try to outline what skills we think are important for citizen science to be done properly. And then we thought that once we came up with all of those skills, we realized it was incomprehensible, like 12 pages of text that nobody can read unless you know what you're looking for. So we separated them into roles and are proposing that researchers who want to embark on the citizen science journey can look into the roles and see whether they can fulfill them or whether they can include others and look for collaborators who could fulfill those roles for them. Right now, we're working on a joint training/mentorship program with Erasmus University in Rotterdam and Erasmus MC Medical Center in Rotterdam. and trying to create a program for early career researchers and teachers on citizen science, community engagement, and science communication. The reason we're doing all three is because we think the skills necessary to do all three are very similar. And any way you look at it, citizen science can include community engagement and science communication, or be part of a larger community engagement or science communication efforts, right? So all three are very connected, and we're trying to bundle it together. It's a 6 weeks course, which includes 6 modules, half-a-day modules, followed by a 6 months mentorship program where after taking the course, after preparing all the exercises which lead to a project proposal, implementation proposal, participants are assigned a mentor for the next 6 months and given some seed funding to actually go out and implement their project, to test out their approaches and succeed or fail, but then share it at the end with other participants. We try to use the training as a way of teaching skills, but also creating champions for this, so who could later on teach others, or at least advocate for the citizen science approach or community engagement and science communication within their faculties, but also just be passionate and do more projects like that in the future. So having this is what covers the citizen science approach. But early on, we also understood that because there are so many skills that are involved in citizen science and not as many support staff who could support researchers with that, or not so many training available there to develop those skills, we needed to kind of pull together all the resources that we had and think about a way to make that happen at a larger scale. So the way to do this for us was to create what we call a civic engagement hub, on which we've been working for the last year. And our ideal dream is by 2030, we'll have a center of expertise and experience for internal and external stakeholders, and that's a broad category where you include everybody who works at the university and outside of it, providing a space to network, experiment, learn, and find opportunities for mutual and beneficial impact and benefit. How we approach this is we include, again, citizen science and participatory research, community engagement, and science communication and science education as big chunks of the hub. We work together with Erasmus University and Erasmus MC Medical Center to make that happen. A lot of people are involved, a lot of different support staff and researchers are thinking about how to make this happen, how to structure the hub, because let's face it, it's a little bit of a new concept that every university could approach differently. But we thought it was important to band together, especially given that a lot of the researchers from Delft also work in Rotterdam or with Rotterdam researchers. And so thematic similarities were difficult to deny. So for now, the structure of the hub is envisaged as community building, capacity building, and structural support. And what we mean by those is the function of community building would include citizens, researchers, teachers, mentors for programs like the training that we're developing, and experts. And by experts, we mean a lot of researchers or support staff, it doesn't really matter, whomever, or community members who've participated a lot, or members of community organizations that would like to advocate on behalf of the groups of people that they represent. Banding together, creating a community and sharing with each other and working together. A lot of this has to do with the fact that in both Delft and Rotterdam, there are a number of areas within the cities where people are over-asked and under-delivered. And by that, I mean a lot of the teaching and research is done in specifically those areas, but because it's uncoordinated, very often what people do is they receive the same questions, the same requests, or even if they're not the same, it's a lot of questions and a lot of requests. And because working with a community long-term is not necessarily a standard practice in research, right? Let's look at the research cycle for a PhD candidate. You work for 4 years on a specific project, and then you leave, or you leave to the next project. 4 years is not a very significant time to make a change happen. It's a significant time for research, but not for change, right? And citizens would probably want change to happen. Research itself does not necessarily present value for them. So they are over-asked and under-delivered in terms of results. So working together in that hub would, in our opinion, address that problem by trying to coordinate the efforts and by delivering a long-term solution to this problem. Capacity building is another function within the hub that we want to focus on, and that's shared learning, whether it's formal or informal, training, mentorship, and monitoring of initiatives, right? So that's inventorization, as I mentioned earlier, a continuous challenge that needs to be continuously addressed. Shared learning, we specifically want to make sure that we do offer training opportunities, but also through community building, we can share our experiences a bit more informally and create this community of mentors and support staff who also learn from each other, especially when it comes to combining citizen science and participatory research, community building, and science communication, right? So the three areas, the idea is if we work together, we will also, as support staff, learn from each other about the other areas of focus and be able to provide better support to the researchers that require it in all of three areas. And then final but important function is the support structure. So providing seed funding for community engagement and citizen science projects, funding advice, how to find additional funding for your community engagement or citizen science efforts, because very often what happens is you have a project already, and it's only through once you're like start implementing it, you realize that you could benefit from a citizen science approach, yet you haven't budgeted for it. So finding that additional money to make sure that you can have meaningful engagement, that's what we advise on, or that's what the hub will advise on. Proposal support, again, including yourselves as part of the proposal process or part of the project teams. Policy development, for example, addressing issues like the ethical concerns and legal concerns and how much time it takes for researchers to deal with that. Finding a solution on a policy level or structural level, how to deal with this. This would also be a main function of the hub. And policy advice, generally advocating for citizen science to be included in policies at the university wherever necessary, such as, for example, rewards and recognition. So these three functions are what we envisage the hub to be. Now, again, this is not yet a reality. Some of these things are happening already, but a lot of them we're still working on, and formalizing the hub also takes a little bit of time. Like I said, we've been working on this for a year, all three institutions, and it's still not done. So it's really a cumbersome process, but we're really hopeful for the future that we can make this happen and provide better support for our researchers. When it comes to specific support side of things, this is it. But if you have any questions about the types of projects that we offer, that our researchers embark on, or anything else, I'm very happy to answer them.
And we have a few minutes, so in the meantime, I try to ask the projects with the citizen science at your university. Are there any more favorite or somehow rewarded for it, or is it not recognized yet?
Yeah, there's a difference, right? So some are and some are not. We generally have, if I have to generalize, we have two types of projects, citizen science projects. The ones coming from the civil engineering department are more focused on engaging citizens as data collectors, because those are more focused on climate change and adaptation measurements. And that has to do a lot with either in Delft or in the African continent, measuring the amount of rainfall, right? And so those types of projects, because they have such an important label of climate adaptation, very often tend to be recognized as necessary, and there's no other way to receive the information. And because the professors that engage a lot of their PhD students in them are very high up in the hierarchy, very well recognized. The process is recognized, and the participants and the PhD students are recognized for their work. The other type has to do with more co-creation and joint problem definition, more interesting, engaged citizen science typology. Those tend to come from the design and architecture faculties. And those tend to be a little bit smaller in scale, right? Fewer people participants, fewer citizen participants, and therefore a little bit less recognized, because it's a standard practice, for example, in design to do user testing, right? So they are considered a little bit more like user testing, although they're not. And so they're a little bit less recognized. So in all in all, I would say recognition and rewards is a big challenge for us still.
Thank you. And we have one question from Jakub Trent, so you can ask, Jakub.
Hello, Tanya. Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. I have just one question. I'm wondering if you are somehow connected to Citizen Science Netherlands based in the Leiden University, because I know that there were some changing in the support of citizen science within the Netherlands. So if there are any connections.
Yes, in fact, Margaret Gold, I think, is who you were referring to, and the Citizen Science Lab. Yes, they are, of course, our partners in a few projects, but generally, Margaret is now a head of the coordinator of the Citizen Science NL, which is a network that has been established and financed very recently through the Dutch Research Council to support all of the people within the network, to which Delft, of course, belongs as well. We are working with them slightly less than with Rotterdam, because the type of projects that they do are slightly less relevant for our researchers. Although, like I said, there are a few, maybe 2 at the moment, that we're doing together. But we're also looking into including Leiden in this hub, so that we could have a Leiden, Delft, and Rotterdam hub all together. We haven't done that yet. We've been working more with Rotterdam, but the discussion is ongoing, because, of course, it's best to band together and do things together.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for the question.